Good morning and welcome to Backchat. I'm Jenny Lam and my co-presenter today is Janice Wong. Good morning, Janice.
Good morning.
Now, crypto platform JPEX is being investigated for alleged fraud as authorities look into complaints from over 1,600 people about losses amounting to a staggering $1.2 billion. Police say the unlicensed platform, promoted by social media influencers and promising impossibly high yields, had hoodwinked inexperienced investors into pumping their cash into opportunities that were simply too good to be true. The scandal comes 3 months after a new regulatory framework governing virtual assets came into force in Hong Kong to rein in the cryptocurrency Wild West that had seen spectacular collapses and rampant fraud in recent years. So how does the JPEX case affect the big picture? Does it strike a blow to Hong Kong's ambitions of becoming a crypto hub? Or does it mark the death knell of the anything goes days of unregulated crypto trading? And after 9:45 this morning, we'll be talking about Bring Your Dog to Work campaign. So let us know what you think. You can leave us a message on our Facebook page, email us at backchat@rthk.hk, or call us on 233 88 266. So joining us in the studio this morning is Mofus Chan. He's chairman of Hong Kong Securities and Futures Professionals Association. And on the line with us now is Johnny Ng. He's a legislator and he's been helping some of the alleged victims. Good morning, Mr. Ng.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
So tell us what you have learned from some of these victims.
I think I would receive some response, and Mr. called me since last Saturday, and some of them have lost around a few millions dollars, and they are very young, and also some are professionals. The one things they want to do is want to report to police and want to get back to their money. Yeah.
No, so one of the things that the chief executive said yesterday is that the investors, the public in general, needs to be more educated about these platforms. What is it that your alleged victims that you've come across, what did they not know that could have prevented this happening to them?
Okay, eventually this platform is not new in Hong Kong. Since 2 years ago, they did a lot of marketing, like doing the public advertisements in MTR, and also some outdoor exposure, like the public transportations. So there's some investor believe it may be the licensed one soon. Also, this organization claim they are applying the license from SFC. At the same time, they engage a number of KOLs or celebrities to promote the products and service of them. And also they set up a lot of offline OTC, just like exchange money shops, and then provide a number of education class. Then the victims, like the investor, believe it is will be a true exchange.
Now, one of the victims that we talked on the phone with and preferred not to be named, this person told us that when he or she decided to withdraw the money on the 14th of September, he was very scared because they were charging him 999 USDT, so these are tethered tokens, for withdrawing 1,000 USTD. And until now, the platform doesn't allow them to withdraw anything. Is that pretty much the story that you've heard from victims?
Yes, I heard that. At the first, after the issue of the warning from SFC, the platform, I think they got a lot of people want to withdraw the money, so they changed the policy of 1,000 US dollar per day and charge with 99.9% of the handling charge, which is really not unbelievable, right? And then, but now the platform is still keeping asking people they are still working on, but no one can get back their money. So I think this maybe from the very beginning is a scam. But not a really real trading platform, I think.
And from what I can understand, the victim that we talked to, he told us that the only way that they could communicate with JPEX was via WhatsApp, or sometimes they would be asked to fill in a Google form. Why is it that these people would spend so much money on somebody that you basically have no physical contact with?
As I mentioned before, that because this platform really did a lot of promotions, not only in Hong Kong, they did a lot of promotion in Taiwan as well, doing a very big event in boxing, engage a number of celebrities in Taiwan as well. So the peoples in the regions, they think this platform really have enough power and resources to do the business. So that they think the interest rate from them is very high, around 20% of returns biannual. So this extraordinary high investment return, which attract a lot of people want to get fast money, I think.
Right. And Mr. Ng, I just want to ask you about what you've been calling on recently. You've been calling on authorities to publish a watch list of cryptocurrency exchanges that are operating in Hong Kong without a license, as well as those that are in the process of applying for one. But the SFC yesterday, it rejected that idea already, saying publishing names of exchanges that are in the process of applying for a license may actually confuse or mislead investors. Do you think it has a point? And what other suggestions do you have?
I think there's a number of reasons that the SFC get this quick response, but I would like to strengthen my points that disclosure of information is very important. Like the suspect list just released last year for this exchange, but you can see from the list is too many website in the list, over thousands. So the citizens, and it's a lot easier to identify what the really high risk exchange or platform inside. I suggest them to can do a separations like standard A, B, C. The most popular in Hong Kong, maybe the class A's, and I think the numbers will not be over 100, maybe a few or less than 10. Then the citizen or investor can easily identify the risk level. But another suggestion for me is the list of which is approved. Is right now we have 2 exchange, and some really applying the license can have a list. Then the citizen can know that which is going to be licensed or not. I think, or make more list for those is rejected already. Then I think disclosure of information is really, really important to all investors in Hong Kong.
So, Mavis Chan, you with the Hong Kong Securities and Futures Professionals Association. Did the SFC do enough, or was it too little, too late?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me for the program. Well, I feel there's a point to the regulator. They should make the communication to the enforcement unit first. Obviously, they did not plan, and they just opened the Pandora box and pass it to the enforcement unit. They just want to get married to their big boss. They still couldn't find who is the big boss and couldn't freeze the big boss money. Okay, maybe they have excuse. We started for the furthermore public get into the scam. But I'm not talking about the regulator should not do anything. They should make furthermore assessment, advice, and better plan before they take the action.
Right. Joshua Chu, you a technology lawyer and you're chief risk officer of the blockchain firm XBE. Did the SFC do enough?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. In my perspective, it's easy to actually criticize on hindsight. I think the SFC is trying to basically showcase Hong Kong as being a regulated and safe environment for trading for the crypto community. And in this particular case, I think it should be emphasized that while we love talking about billions of dollars, in USD terms, this is actually a very relatively small exchange. And if you convert it, it's less than 160 million USD. You can't even buy a super yacht that a lot of oligarchs love buying with that amount of money. So that having been said, there are we can see that there are large scales of victims in this particular case. And one of the things that we see that is lacking both in law enforcement as well as in professional capacity is that there should have been a lot more pre-announcement actions that should have been done ahead of time that could have really safeguarded these affected stakeholders. Keeping in mind, prior to the announcement, the SFC have already, without naming JPEGs, already said some platforms are misleading the public and potentially have certain violations. That circular was issued on the 7th of August this year. Before this entire saga. During that whole 1 month period, because I used to be a litigator that dealt with complex fraud, what SFC or even affected parties have done is a series of pre-action disclosure applications to relevant courts, both in Hong Kong and abroad. Because what the facts that we do know is that JPEGs have engaged in monetary transactions with, for example, KOLs locally. So what could have happened is they could have gone to the courts and say, we need urgent disclosure of certain bank documents in order to pinpoint the person behind these monetary transactions, because at the end of the day, despite all the hype saying we are living in a Web3 world, everyone behind the Web3 space is still an individual on planet Earth, very much tied in. So the question is whether disclosure applications were made ahead of time. And if the disclosure applications had been made, another thing that could have done is preservation of assets. This is where I also did a lot of work in. What would have been useful is that an urgent freeze application be for court order freeze of relevant financial assets be made prior to the announcement naming of JPEGs. Because what has happened now, as you have pointed out rightly, is JPEGs did a lot of action that's quite fishy, such as raising the administrative charge to $999 USD just for withdrawal of 1,000 USDT. Prior to the announcement, there might be a certain degree of certainty that the assets could have been consolidated in one centralized location. The fact is, by basically throwing, as Mr. Chen said, making the announcement so rapidly without taking all the pre-action, is that the money could have been dissipated. Now, of course, but not meaning any criticism, I think there is still a lot of things that could happen because we're still in very early stages. As a criminal litigation lawyer in the past, what we have seen is a lot of cross-border collaboration. Just because an individual ultimately might not be located in Hong Kong doesn't mean there's no recourse. In a lot of, for example, drug bust operations, it's actually a collaboration between law enforcement of Hong Kong police as well as a foreign police like Dubai police in this case might be very useful. And this is actually one of the areas that Hong Kong can really shine at because we have such good relationship with our Middle Eastern partners. And if we deal with this matter quite in a very structured and very methodical manner that can actually help resolve this issue, it might actually boost confidence on coming to Hong Kong as a fintech hub. Because FTX, for example, when it collapsed, no one has any recourse. In fact, SBF tried fleeing to Dubai as well. So did Do Kwon and the people behind Three Arrows. But by leveraging our relationship with the Qatari and Dubai governments, this can really help Hong Kong shine at the end of the day.
All right, Joshua, I'm going to go back to you in a moment because I know lawmaker Johnny Ng, he has to leave very soon. So just a final question, Mr. Ng. Mr. Ng?
Yeah, I'm here.
So just now, Joshua Chu, he was saying that all the action that's been taken in this incident is hopefully to show that Hong Kong has a regulated and safe environment for a crypto trade. Do you think this incident really demonstrates that?
Yes, actually, I believe our current regulatory regime is sophisticated and competes for the virtual assets exchange provider. But we can see there's a loophole in this case of the OTC offline ones. They even don't need any license to operate a crypto exchange offline, while those OTC will reach a number of normal general publics. So that I think this case, why so many people are trapped in that, and also why the KOLs can leverage the offline offline shops to do a lot of education classes, which make more and more people to become the victims. So I think we can review the law. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Johnny, who's been helping some of the victims, and he's obviously with the Legislative Council. Thank you, Mr. Ng, for joining us this morning. Back to you, Joshua Chu. So you were saying that the failure to freeze the assets and basically find the money trail before naming JPEGs, does that reduce the chances of the victims recovering their assets?
Not necessarily. I have done complex fraud cases where the money was dissipated, but criminals tend to be lazy at the end of the day. So if you basically engage the right professional parties, we have been able to basically recover huge amounts of assets, despite the fact of very complex laundering techniques. And the beauty about crypto is that if it's crypto, it's always recorded on the blockchain, and you can definitely trace and freeze accordingly. Now, I would say that Hong Kong's regulation is actually quite comprehensive, and I don't think there's a loophole for OTC companies, as with these high-profile arrests, because if they have violated relevant laws, it's going to basically, we will be making those arrests, as we can see, and it really closes the gap. It's actually, so what we are seeing is there's going to be overlapping of jurisdiction between different law enforcement agencies in Hong Kong. And this is a very good opportunity as well to demonstrate inter-department collaboration within the local level, basically to resolve this case. At the end of the day, regulators are also human beings, and this is a very good opportunity to gain experience. And I will have to say, Hong Kong's law are actually very well written. I've tried reading the U.S. security law, and it looks like I'm reading a Shakespeare piece of writing in the past. It's very confusing, and Hong Kong is actually quite clear and succinct when it comes to how we draft our legal instrument documentations.
Okay, well, joining us in our Admiralty studio is Jamie Di Biasio. He's the editor of AMTD DICFIN, which is a digital finance publication and research group. Good morning, Mr. Di Biasio.
Good morning.
What do you make of the arrest over the JPEGs? Was it too high profile? Was it too little, too late?
No, I think the arrest of the KOLs was a very powerful signal. It was the right thing to do. Of course, those people have to be presumed innocent, but the allegations are strong. If this is going to be a crypto hub or a center for digital assets, then there has to be clarity around what's allowed and what's not allowed. And I think listening to the other speakers, there could be some criticisms of how the SFC has handled this. I'm not an expert on that. But I think they want to make sure that going forward, there is a clear sense that this is a place where there's rules and you can prosper if you follow them.
If we are to talk about tightening the rules, what would you like to see? What additional regulations do you think is necessary?
I don't know if we need a lot more regulation around treating retail investors in crypto. The challenges in this industry are more fundamental and get into the weeds of the structure of the industry itself. That's a long conversation, but I think in terms of retail investor protections, Hong Kong has probably got the best set of laws out there. This is probably the place where we're testing what is best in class.
Mofus Chan, what do you think? Does this case highlight Hong Kong's ability to operate as a cryptocurrency trading hub?
I think the system is just effective on beginning of June. They have much more the consultation about the cryptocurrency, what they call anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing amendment bill. And was discussed many times, and our association also have submit our consultation reply to them. We agree to that.
What additional regulation do you think would be helpful?
I am agree to SFC what they are talking, and the government, they are looking for AML, anti-money laundering. SFC are apply much more. It's equal to nowadays in security industry and future industry, asset management as well. They are doing the same things, and also in the international standards. And also, but just now we're talking about the KOL's matter. KOL or star are not equal to us. Working in financial industry, they are not licensed person. They did not take any due diligence. Okay, they don't know and what is the risk assessment is. Okay, they only know how to receive the money and say how good to the product. Okay, even the KOL told you he sold a value of 20 million property and bet all into the crypto. How do you know it's real or not? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious case that comes to mind would be the Dogecoin, right, with Elon Musk. The people made a huge amount of money in a very short period of time.
And nowadays, many well-educated and young people, they doing the cryptocurrency. They do not doing the security market. Okay, so it's not surprise many young people and well-educated will get lost into this crisis.
So, like the chief executive was saying, people need to be more educated about how to trade crypto. In your view, Mr. Chan, what should people know? What should investors be wary of?
Let me say, this is a lesson for the public to trade in the regulated or licensed corporation, since the licensed corporation under the supervision of the SFC, and the investor have to have a certain level of protection under the regulatory information. And for public, just like what I say, even the KOL saying what matter, you have to make your analysis for yourself.
And Joshua Chi, I just want to go back to you. I mean, just now we were discussing whether there needs to be more regulation. What's your view on that? And also, I mean, is there really a need for more regulation? Or in this case, is it partly because of the grace period, the 1 year grace period, 1 year transitional period that was involved? I mean, is that the real problem here?
First of all, I don't think you can do what Gary Gensler is trying to do in the SEC, which is regulate your way to perfection. It needs to be a balanced approach of both regulation, enforcement, as well as education. And keeping in mind, you're quite right. We're still in the grace period. We're still accepting application until the February 24th of 2024. So there is so we have always we shouldn't be jumping to conclusion that JPEX is definitely a scam. We haven't heard that side of the story, and there is. You're rightly said. There's a lacking of education, not just for the layperson, though, but even for professional services as well. Because prior to the legislation, we used to be on an opt-in regime, and there's only 2 exchanges that got their license, and both exchanges didn't get it through engaging a law firm. It was through engaging a regulatory firm, ProSynergy, that really got us that far. So, and this is a very novel and new area where we see even the lawyers themselves need to be educated. And I wouldn't rule out the possibility that it might be entirely possible that JPEX just simply have engaged very poor quality legal advice on that in that respect. But at the end of the day, proper education of the public is also important. The measures that I made about how pre-announcement actions could have been made actually doesn't just apply to regulators and law enforcement. Affected stakeholders can similarly apply to the courts for both disclosure and asset freeze order to preserve their assets. And this goes for the KOL, in fact.
They did. I mean, that's how this case came about, because thousands of people started complaining. That's why...
Yes, but thousands of people have started complaining potentially in the wrong jurisdiction because they're all located in Hong Kong. But this is a platform that never operated within jurisdiction. And this is why cross-border collaboration is also imperative. Because at the end of the day, our regulators can't really do law enforcement outside the bounds of Hong Kong. And this is why we have entities and collaboration groups like Interpol that really helps. In fact, most complex wire fraud involve cross-border police action to be effective.
Okay. Well, we're coming up to 9:30 now, and let's have... Welcome back to Backchat, and still with us here in our studio is Mofus Chan. He's chairman of Hong Kong Securities and Futures Professionals Association, and Joshua Chu, a lawyer and risk officer of blockchain firm XBP. And in our QGO office is Jamie DiBiasio. He's the editor of AMTD Dick Fin, which is a finance publication and research group. One of our listeners, Henry, has written in, and he says, people should never believe in cryptocurrency. Why exchange your hard-earned money for cryptocurrency? Why back up cryptocurrency? There's no such thing as easy money. Once you don't believe in such funny scheme, you won't fall into traps like JPEGs. What do you think, Joshua Chu? Are people just naive in trading in cryptocurrency?
This statement actually echoes what Gary Gensler said. Why do we need cryptocurrency? We have plenty of fiat money. But this also echoes 100 years ago when a very famous post office director in the UK that says, why do we need telephones? We have plenty of messenger boys. So I think it's just there's always a resistance to technology. But he did point out one very good thing. He demonstrated that he obviously doesn't know the application of blockchain technology. And in governments like Singapore and Hong Kong, our emphasis is that blockchain technology ought to be applied in tokenizing of real-world assets. And not just simply used as a gimmick to stimulate trade. For example, we now have the digital ownership token, where legal contracts are written into the token. And but on the other hand, we have a lot of cryptocurrencies, which are what we call air token, because none of the legal instruments are embedded into the token, and you can't basically take the token and enforce your rights in court. So education, as well as proper application of technology, is actually the key. And by having proper education, having a standard, meaning all tokenization projects, for example, have an industry standards of must have regulatory as well as legal audits, because most of them just comes out with a flimsy legal opinion, and that doesn't really help. Plus the smart contract audits. These all goes towards guaranteeing consumer protection. For manufacturing, we have the ISO standards. I think the same should apply within this Web3 space. And Web3 is actually just a small part to play in China's 14th five-year plan, because Hong Kong is actually just simply upholding the central government's plan of turning our cities into smart cities in the future. And this is a painful growing process that we must undergo at the end of the day.
What do you think, Mr. DiBiasio? What lessons should we learn from JPEGs in trading blockchains in general?
I agree with the caller. I mean, it's true that there's technology and stuff, blockchain, the metaverse behind digital assets. And I do believe that there's going to be a lot of positive change at the infrastructure layer in the financial services world, using these technologies to do the same things but a lot better. But for a retail investor looking at this stuff, honestly, I don't see the benefit. You might as well just go to Macau because you can have dinner at the same time as you go to the casino. The innovation argument, yes, we don't need all these outdated technologies. We should be open-minded, but Bitcoin came out about the same time as the iPhone. The iPhone has changed all of our lives, some negatively, but mostly positively. And what has Bitcoin really done in terms of changing our lives or creating really new ways of doing things that we can touch and feel? So at some point, some of these developments in the industry will get to the point where there is real benefits and real things that retail investors can participate in. But honestly, they'll probably be able to access those services through a bank or through some other kind of provider that's got, and in Hong Kong, because we have this licensing regime, we have a good chance of being able to shape better what that looks like. But what retail investors can do today in crypto, in a licensed way, is quite limited. They're limited to spot. They're limited to just the top coins. The custody requirements are stringent. There's an insurance requirement. So it's keeping the guardrails on. Whereas professional investors, rich people, they have a lot more freedom, and that's fine. And they can continue to experiment and do what they want and take their own risk.
Right. Joshua Chu, you've been you're shaking your head. Why is that?
No, it's obvious that whenever we have new technologies that come out, certain antiquated businesses will go out of business. The beauty about tokenization is that it removes the third-party risk. We saw the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank early this year. We saw the banking crisis multiple times. And I think that the adoption of technology will actually phase out a lot of these traditional, more traditional businesses that haven't really caught up. And you can't really just simply say, I can just get the same business at the same old place. There's, of course, a lot of resistance to change. Lawyers will be very resistant because you'll be cutting out all the legal drafting work that's done on paper once you have done that. But the problem is a lot of these tokens are, at the end of the day, I agree, it's an air token. And that's not what Hong Kong is about. That's not what Singapore government is about. We always, we have, the MASF actually came out and say, we emphasize that, say yes to innovation and adoption of technology, no to speculation. The problem we are seeing is that people think that they can get rich quick fast, and these are not healthy. But the same doubts have actually came out when people spoke about the internet. I don't think anyone is using dial-up today, nor do I think I'm still engaging anyone to transcribe my contracts onto clay tablets, which have been done in a very big industry 2,000 years ago.
What do you think, Moses Chan?
Well, let's say about the attitude to the regulator. It's difficult for the traditional regulator to supervise some new and innovative area without sufficient regulatory framework and manpower. Okay, but they don't know how to do and facing a new technology. Okay, they are still using in traditional way. Once I request to the financial institution for special demand, they will obey immediately, okay? But now your enemy are invisible. You don't know who is the big boss, who is the shareholder, and no physical office, and all the staff work from home. So for the regulator, you have to accept for new idea and do not using the old traditional way to take your management.
But are the investors just being naive to think money will just fall out of the sky?
Yeah, I think it's too naive. Even say 20 or 30% of the UA is too good to be true. This is low fee lunch in the world, okay? Even the green bond provide 4 to 5 interest rate, but people should have some common sense to think is it reasonable or not.
So, Joshua, these guys are saying people just don't know enough about crypto, and you're saying, this is a way to go. It's inevitable that we go into, this form of trade. What is a key message for investors who say, I would still like to try it?
Look, at the end of the day, Hong Kong has always stressed that at every level when you're making an investment, you have to do your own due diligence. And this has actually really been the message that came out ever since the Lehman Brothers era. The at-rich principle, you have to be reminded that investment, you can lose your money. And this is something that have to be stressed upon. I don't think AUM percentage return should be a measure, because we have seen traditional securities right now on the market with certain real estate companies offering double-digit returns as well, because they really need the money. But at the end of the day, those are high-risk propositions, and you have to do your own research into it, because you can't possibly make an informed decision based purely on speculation and market sentiments. You must know what the business is behind.
Right. So how do you do your research into this? I mean, how can you tell what is legit and what is not? I mean, especially now that the SFC is not really willing to provide a lot of information for investors.
Well, I think what is legit or not is going to come out because Hong Kong actually, another thing that we have to remember is that the entire licensing regime is to attract not retail. Retail was never our market. market. You don't make money. You don't turn Hong Kong into a financial center by targeting the retail segment. You turn Hong Kong back into a leading international financial center by targeting the professional investment segment, the professional investors from the Middle East, for example, all the hedge funds from the Middle East, all the hedge fund from the global south. This is actually what Hong Kong is aiming at the end of the day. There's a reason why we are catering to professional investors, and we should never really emphasize on retail, because that's where all the risk, and as well as it's really not that big of the market, even though those are the ones that suffer the most.
What do you think, Mr. de Biasio, if Hong Kong is to continue as a major financial hub, developing virtual trade and cryptocurrency trading is a must?
I think it's useful to have a place where people can try to work with these tools. But the point that Mr. Chu is making is that there has to be some sort of use case, that people should be educated, and they should not just be greedy looking for some short, quick buck. But that is the use case for crypto. That has been the only use case for crypto. So until we get to a point where there's other use cases, and I think tokenization could become one of those, but again, that's something that's a license for institutions and accredited investors to work with, then I think there's been so many scams, and that if you're a retail investor, your starting point should be skepticism, and there are other ways to either gamble or invest that are regulated and safer, and there's somebody who the regulators can go find if there's a real problem. And I would say the reason that we have retail at all licensed here is because we created a system to license institutional and accredited investors, which instead of protecting retail, just left them out to predators or to outside people, of which JPEX may be one.
Joshua, Hong Kong currently has 2 licensed crypto trading platforms.
Yes.
Is that enough? Do you feel that this particular case has put an impact on going further down that path, or do you think that it actually gives more confidence in developing this market?
Last I heard, there's over 100 applications right now. But keeping in mind, in Hong Kong, there's only one stock exchange, one licensed operator of a stock exchange. So you really don't need that many exchange for it to be demonstrated there is a value. But again, I think there is improvement, not on the regulation so much on the existing financial side, but probably on the advertisement side, because what we saw JPEX do is taking out essentially bus bench ads targeting retail markets. You don't need that if you're targeting professional investors. And I think a better, more refined framework from the advertisement regulation perspective will actually help curb some of these malpractices. But at the end of the day, there are actually use case of good tokenization efforts that does allow for rapid transactions because you no longer rely on paper, and that is the way to go, I think, in the future. And we will see more and more institutions adopting these technologies, which will actually showcase how we're leading the trend in terms of proper application of blockchain technologies. We should, of course, I don't believe in cryptocurrencies. I don't believe in air tokens, because at the end of the day, like what I have emphasized previously, the token itself have to have the legal rights embedded within it. It needs to be enforceable in court. So unless you can take the token to court and enforce your rights, it's not a successful tokenization. And that's where the gap is.
It's all unknown territory to us right now. You're saying it's not happening now. It can come to a point where blockchains can be analyzed in courts, can't it?
Yes, it can be. In fact, we have something called the Ricardian contract, which I have been having trouble explaining to fellow lawyers, actually. The concept, it came out in the 1970s. It's basically a contract that's both readable by the human natural language as well as by a computer, making it legally enforceable, because peer codes cannot be enforced, and there are case authorities on this subject, approaching on this subject. But we need to basically upgrade the entire system, including the professional service providers, which is not up to par yet, which is why we're pushing so hard on education.
Right, and I just want to go back just very briefly to Movis. I mean, earlier Joshua Chu was talking about how investors, they should be more educated, they should do their research when it comes to investment or in crypto trading. What's your view? I mean, how can we better protect these investors or potential investors? I mean, earlier we heard from Johnny Ng, the lawmaker. He's suggesting that the SFC should provide a watch list for investors to tell them which companies are about to be about to get their license. What's your view on that?
Well, some people will got some argument about that, but for my side, I'm agree to SFC should not disclose any license application process to the public. We don't know the final application result is pass or fail. Do you know that kind of financial institution are involving public interest? License are issued by the authority. Public are trust to the authority. Not only SFC involving to this application, police and the custom also have to take the background checking. So if not, otherwise we'll bring another scam cases. So that's why on last month I was request to the SAR government to reform the regulatory framework. That's it.
But what about you, Jamie de Biasio? Do you agree with Joshua Chu that if we regulate the way these things are marketed and advertised, take out the KOL, do you think that helps to protect investors?
Yes, of course. The issue is, I think, what should we allow investors access to in the first place? But, of course, there can be some rules around how these things... I mean, there's no licensing around this. So, but if this is a financial instrument, it should be at par with, say, a fund.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning, Jamie de Biasio with AMTD, and Joshua Chu from XBE, which is a blockchain firm, and also Movis Chan here in our studio.